What I'm about to tell you was never meant to be public. A former music industry executive has just leaked documents to me showing Kanye West secured a hidden $1.2 billion arrangement that Taylor Swift allegedly attempted to derail through backchannels. This bombshell revelation comes from someone who was in the room when the deals were made, the contracts were signed, and the threats were exchanged. Between you and me, what you're about to hear will forever change how you view two of music's biggest icons. The celebrity feud you thought you knew. That was just the surface. The real war was happening behind closed doors, over billions of dollars, and with careers hanging in the balance. My source, who worked at the highest levels of the industry for over 2 decades, risked everything to expose this truth. They've provided documents, text messages, and recordings that the teams of both artists have desperately tried to keep buried. Why am I sharing this now? Because the public deserves to know what really happens when billionaire artists collide. The story begins in late 2019, but what the tabloids don't know is that Kanye's financial empire was actually on the verge of collapse. Despite his boasts about billionaire status, my industry source revealed to me that West was hemorrhaging money through his Yeezy brand at an alarming rate. Kanye was sitting on nearly $300 million in debt that nobody knew about, my source explained. His public persona as a billionaire was carefully crafted, but behind the scenes, he was making desperate calls to investors almost daily. This is where things get interesting. While most celebrities were fighting for streaming numbers, Kanye was secretly orchestrating what might be the most lucrative deal in entertainment history. According to the leaked documents, West had been working on a revolutionary technology partnership that would integrate his music, fashion, and technology ventures under one massive umbrella. The potential value: $1.2 billion. But here's the shocking part. The deal wasn't with any traditional music label or fashion conglomerate. It was with a mysterious holding company based in Singapore with direct ties to government investment funds in 3 countries. My source told me this wasn't just about money for Kanye. This was about creating a legacy that would make his rival celebrities look like small-time players. The deal would have given West unprecedented control over his intellectual property, while providing him with the capital to expand into areas that would directly compete with Taylor Swift's business interests. And that's where our story takes its first dramatic turn. Because what happened next would shock even the most seasoned industry insiders. Taylor Swift, who had remained publicly focused on re-recording her masters, was apparently keeping very close tabs on Kanye's business moves. The leaked documents include email exchanges from Swift's business team that show she was receiving detailed intelligence about West's negotiations almost in real time. She had informants everywhere, my source explained. People would be surprised to know just how extensive Taylor's business intelligence network really is. She doesn't just track music competitors, she monitors everyone who could potentially impact her empire. But why would Swift care about Kanye's deal? The answer lies in the fine print of the arrangement. The documents reveal that part of West's $1.2 billion deal included acquiring significant stakes in multiple streaming platforms, the very same platform Swift was negotiating with for her catalog's digital rights. If Kanye's deal went through, he would suddenly have leverage over how Swift's music was valued, promoted, and monetized across multiple platforms. They don't want this getting out, but Swift's team apparently launched what insiders called Operation Shutdown, a coordinated effort to sabotage West's deal before it could be finalized. Taylor never directly involved herself in the communications, my source revealed. She maintained perfect deniability while her team worked to poison the well with Kanye's potential investors. The truth, finally exposed in these documents, shows that Swift's representatives allegedly approached the Singapore-based holding company with a dossier of damaging information about West's business practices, mental health challenges, and potential future controversies. Swift's team reportedly warned the investors that associating with West would create incalculable reputation damage, and offered an alternative investment opportunity with Swift's own ventures. But that's nothing compared to what happened next. In early 2020, as the deal was approaching its final stages, West experienced a series of what appeared to be random setbacks. Key staff suddenly resigned. Crucial meetings were mysteriously rescheduled. Confidential information leaked to the press at precisely the wrong moments. What seemed like bad luck was, according to my source, a carefully orchestrated campaign. It wasn't just Taylor's team, my source confided. They had enlisted allies throughout the industry, people who owed favors to Swift or who stood to benefit if Kanye's deal collapsed. It was like watching a chess master take down an opponent who didn't even know they were playing. The most shocking revelation. The documents include a transcript of a phone call, allegedly between a high-ranking executive at Swift's management company and one of the Singapore investors. In the call, the executive can be heard saying, "Mr. West's unpredictability presents an unacceptable level of risk. We can offer you something more stable, more profitable, and without the controversy. Ms. Swift is prepared to offer favorable terms if this current negotiation were to disappear." What's particularly fascinating about this celebrity net worth battle is how it exposes the reality behind the carefully curated public images of both artists. While Swift has built her brand on authenticity and speaking truth to power, these documents suggest she was simultaneously wielding that power in ways her fans never get to see. And while Kanye portrayed himself as an independent visionary battling against industry constraints, he was apparently desperate for the very corporate backing he claimed to reject. By April 2020, West's deal was showing serious signs of strain. 3 of the 5 major investors had pulled out, citing concerns about long-term viability, the exact language suggested in Swift's team's communications. The remaining investors demanded new terms that would have significantly reduced West's control and compensation. According to my source, Kanye was blindsided. He couldn't understand why a deal that had been practically guaranteed was suddenly falling apart. What the public saw during this period was West's increasingly erratic behavior, the presidential campaign announcement, the controversial rallies, the Twitter meltdowns. What they've been hiding from you is that much of this may have been triggered by the immense pressure of watching his financial salvation slip away, without understanding why. The plot thickens even further when you look at the timing of Swift's surprise album, Folklore. My industry source revealed to me that Swift accelerated the production and release of this album, specifically to dominate the cultural conversation at precisely the moment when West was making his final push to save his deal. It wasn't a coincidence, my source insisted. The album was ready months earlier, but they held it until they knew Kanye would be making his big move. But here's where this billionaire secrets saga takes its most unexpected turn. Despite Swift's alleged interference, West managed to salvage a portion of his deal, roughly $400 million rather than the full $1.2 billion. This was enough to stabilize his immediate financial situation, but fell far short of the empire-building capital he had been counting on. However, the documents show that West discovered Swift's involvement just days after signing his reduced deal. What happened next can only be described as corporate warfare. West apparently began a counter-campaign targeting Swift's business interests. The leaked materials include a strategy document from West's team titled simply Reciprocity. It outlined plans to use West's remaining influence to complicate Swift's negotiations with streaming platforms, touring companies, and brand partners. Kanye was livid, my source explained. He viewed this as the ultimate betrayal, not just as a business competitor, but as someone who had once been friendly with him before their public falling out. The document contains a particularly disturbing section labeled Leverage Points that identified vulnerabilities in Swift's business model and personal life that could be exploited. While most of these plans never materialized, my source confirmed that certain mysterious challenges Swift faced throughout 2021, including the unexpected renegotiation of her touring contracts and difficulties with international distribution partners, were direct results of West's behind-the-scenes maneuvering. This wasn't just about money anymore, my source confided. This was about two of the most powerful figures in entertainment, using their influence to wage a silent war against each other while smiling for the cameras. The Taylor-Kanye feud that the public knows about is just the tiniest tip of an enormous iceberg. What makes this story of canceled celebrities particularly fascinating is how both managed to maintain their public narratives while engaging in this shadow conflict. Swift continued positioning herself as the victim of industry machinations, never acknowledging her own role as one of its most powerful players. West maintained his persona as a misunderstood genius battling against unseen forces, which, in this case, wasn't entirely untrue. The documents reveal another layer to this saga that has remained completely hidden until now. Both artists were apparently competing for something even bigger than the immediate financial gains: exclusive partnerships with emerging technologies that would revolutionize how music is created, distributed, and monetized. The Singapore deal wasn't just about money. It included access to proprietary AI and blockchain technologies that could potentially make traditional record labels obsolete. Whoever controlled these technologies would essentially control the future of the music industry, my source explained. That's why the stakes were so high. That's why they were willing to go to such extremes. By late 2021, the situation had reached a stalemate. West had secured enough capital to stabilize his empire, but not enough to achieve the dominance he sought. Swift had successfully protected her interests, but had created a powerful enemy with nothing to lose. The leaked documents show both sides agreed to an unspoken truce, mediated by two industry veterans who recognized that mutual destruction would benefit neither party. But that truce was about to be shattered by an unexpected development. In early 2022, just as both artists thought the worst was behind them, a third player entered the game. The documents include frantic communications from both West's and Swift's teams, responding to news that Drake, yes, Drake, had quietly been assembling his own consortium of investors to acquire the very same technologies both had been fighting over. It was like watching two chess masters suddenly realize they'd been so focused on each other that they hadn't noticed a third player setting up checkmate, my source revealed. Drake had been watching this battle from the sidelines, learning from their mistakes, and making his move when they were both exhausted from fighting each other. This revelation forced West and Swift into an unthinkable position. they had to consider working together to fend off this new threat. The documents include a draft of a proposed joint venture between their companies, a document so sensitive that only 3 copies were ever printed. The proposed alliance would have combined West's influence in fashion and technology with Swift's dominance in music and merchandising to create an entertainment juggernaut valued at over $3 billion. The irony was incredible, my source said. These 2 people who had been publicly feuding for years were secretly discussing becoming business partners out of mutual self-preservation. The proposed partnership outlined a fascinating structure where both artists would maintain their separate public identities and even continue their perceived rivalry, which both teams acknowledged had been beneficial for generating publicity, while their business interests would be aligned behind the scenes. The document included a section labeled Narrative Management that detailed how they would continue to appear at odds publicly while working together privately. It even suggested manufactured controversies that could be rolled out strategically to maintain public interest in their feud. But the alliance never materialized. According to my source, the final meeting between representatives from both camps ended in disaster when discussion turned to who would have controlling interest in the joint venture. Neither side was willing to cede control, my source explained. Even when facing a common threat, they couldn't overcome their need to be the dominant partner. What happened instead reshapes everything we thought we knew about recent events in both artists' careers. With the potential alliance dead, both artists returned to their separate corners and developed new strategies. West doubled down on his fashion enterprises, using the capital he had secured to expand his Yeezy brand into new categories. Swift accelerated her re-recording project, creating new value from her existing catalog while reducing the worth of her original masters. But behind the scenes, both were scrambling to secure their positions against not just each other, but Drake's emerging threat. This explains West's seemingly impulsive decision to terminate his Gap partnership and Swift's unprecedented move to release 4 albums in less than 2 years. They weren't just artistic choices, they were strategic business maneuvers in a 3-way battle for industry dominance. The most revealing document in the entire leak is a risk assessment prepared for West in September 2022. It outlined various scenarios that could impact his business empire, with one section specifically devoted to Swift contingencies. The document coldly calculated the financial impact of various moves Swift might make and proposed countermeasures for each. Similarly, a strategic planning memo from Swift's team included a section titled KW Mitigation Strategies that detailed how to neutralize any potential actions from West that might threaten her business interests. Both documents show how deeply these artists had integrated their personal feud into their business planning. What most people don't understand is that at this level of wealth and influence, business and personal grievances become completely intertwined, my source explained. When you're worth hundreds of millions or billions, every decision is both personal and financial at the same time. This brings us to the present day and the most disturbing revelation of all. According to my source, the current public perception of Kanye West's downfall, his anti-Semitic remarks, the loss of his Adidas partnership, his apparent financial struggles, may not be exactly what it seems. The leaked documents include communications suggesting that West believed he was being systematically targeted by a coalition of industry powers, including Swift's team, who saw an opportunity to permanently eliminate him as a competitor. I'm not defending his statements in any way, my source clarified, but there's evidence that certain parties were prepared to amplify and capitalize on any controversial statements he might make. They didn't cause the controversy, but they were ready to ensure it did maximum damage. Equally shocking are indications that Swift's record-breaking Eras tour, which has cemented her status as perhaps the most powerful figure in entertainment, was partially designed as a final, decisive move in this long-running battle. The tour wasn't just about connecting with fans or promoting albums, my source revealed. It was a demonstration of absolute market dominance intended to show potential business partners that aligning with her was the only viable option in the industry. The documents suggest that Swift's team specifically structured the tour's financial arrangements to absorb capital and partnerships that might otherwise have been available to West as he attempted to rebuild his empire. It was brilliant strategy, my source admitted. She created a commercial juggernaut so powerful that it essentially vacuumed up all available oxygen in the entertainment financing world. This brings us to where things stand today. West, despite his public controversies and apparent financial setbacks, has reportedly been quietly assembling new partnerships with international investors beyond the reach of traditional American entertainment power structures. Swift, riding the unprecedented success of her tour and seemingly unstoppable cultural influence, appears to have emerged victorious from this shadow war. But my source warns that appearances can be deceiving. What people need to understand is that neither of these artists thinks in terms of traditional victory or defeat. They're playing a much longer game. West may appear to be down now, but he's repositioning himself. And Swift, despite her current dominance, is acutely aware that maintaining that position requires constant vigilance against threats, including whatever West might be planning next. The final document in this extraordinary leak is perhaps the most tantalizing. Dated just 3 weeks ago, it appears to be a preliminary term sheet for a new venture involving West. While most details are redacted, the visible portions suggest he secured backing for a technology platform that would compete directly with traditional music distribution models, potentially including those vital to Swift's business model. If this venture materializes, my source told me, it could reignite the whole conflict. And next time, it won't just be these two artists involved. The battle lines being drawn now involve every major player in entertainment. Now that you know the truth about what's been happening behind the scenes, you might be wondering what happens next in this billionaire chess match. According to my source, we're entering a new phase where the conflict may finally spill more visibly into the public arena. Both sides have been relatively careful about keeping the real battle hidden from public view, they explained. But as the stakes continue to rise, that becomes harder to maintain. Industry analysts I've consulted suggest that the next 12 months will be critical. With Swift's tour concluding and West reportedly preparing to re-emerge into the public sphere, the stage is set for the next round of this epic confrontation. The question is no longer if these two entertainment titans will clash again, but when and how destructive the collision will be. What's particularly fascinating about this entire saga is how it reveals the true nature of power and influence in today's entertainment landscape. The feud that the public has witnessed, the songs, the social media posts, the veiled references in interviews, was merely a shadow play concealing the real conflict over billions of dollars and the future of the industry itself. In a way, both artists have been playing characters for the public, my source reflected. The actual Taylor Swift and Kanye West are far more calculating, strategic, and business-focused than their public personas suggest. They're not just artists, they're the CEOs of global enterprises who happen to make music. As we conclude this unprecedented look behind the curtain of celebrity wealth and power, I want to emphasize something important. This information comes from a source who has put themselves at significant professional and personal risk to reveal these truths. The documents they've provided paint a picture of the entertainment industry that's far more complex and ruthless than most fans could imagine. The battle between Kanye West and Taylor Swift isn't just about two celebrities who don't get along. It's about the future of entertainment itself. Who will control it, who will profit from it, and who will be left behind as the industry transforms. The $1.2 billion deal that sparked this conflict was just the beginning of a war that continues to this day. And here's the most chilling part. My source has indicated that there's more to this story that they haven't yet revealed. Documents that are even more sensitive, recordings that would be even more damaging, and connections to other major celebrities and business figures that extend this web of intrigue far beyond just Swift and West. What I've shared with you today is just the first chapter in an ongoing investigation. As more information comes to light, I'll be updating this channel with new revelations. This is why you need to subscribe now and turn on notifications, because when the next piece of this puzzle emerges, you'll want to be the first to know. Between you and me, what you've just heard is only the beginning. The real bombshells are still to come. And if my source is correct about what's in the next batch of documents, no one in the entertainment industry will ever be the same once those revelations come to light. The question now isn't just whether you believe this incredible story, it's whether you're ready for what comes next. Estimated duration, 13.6 minutes.